Did you know that in the last 5 years, 500 new GCCs have come up in India? Did you know that India is home to a third of the global engineering talent? Did you know that tier 2 towns like Kochi and Chandigarh are witnessing a 2x growth in GCCs? Hello and welcome to another edition of Capital Calculus. I am your host Anil Padmanabhan. A few weeks ago, NASSCOM released its latest assessment on global capability centers or GCCs based out of India. Global corporations set up GCCs to tap expertise, resources, and talent not necessarily available within their immediate geography. The deep dive by NASSCOM revealed 1. That the growth of GCCs in India have exploded. In fact, India is now the de facto GCC capital of the world. Second, there is a marked transition towards value addition in the work coming out of India. To unpack this trend, I spoke to Achyuta Ghosh. He is the head of insights at NASSCOM and a co-author of this report. But before that, here's a quick FAQ on GCCs.
In today's interconnected world, businesses are expanding beyond borders, leveraging talent, innovation, and resources from across the globe. But how do they do this? One powerful way is through Global Capability Centers or GCCs. A GCC is an offshore or nearshore entity fully owned and operated by a parent company that provides a range of specialized services from information technology and R&D to complex back-office functions. These global capability centers have undergone a significant shift over the past few decades, transforming from centers performing tasks of routine transactional assignments at a fraction of the cost compared to developed markets to now being at the forefront of driving innovation and digital transformation for their parent companies. India has solidified its position as leading destination for GCCs. Key factors contributing to India's dominance include skilled workforce. India produces a large number of highly skilled graduates annually, particularly in STEM fields. Cost competitiveness. Despite rising wages, India still offers significant cost savings compared to developed markets. Innovation ecosystem. Major cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Pune have developed robust innovation ecosystems. Government initiatives. Programs like Digital India and Make in India have created a favorable environment for GCCs. English proficiency. A large English-speaking workforce facilitates seamless communication with global teams.
I began by asking Achyuta, what is the secret sauce that India has which is permitting this massive growth in GCCs based out of India?
What was interesting is that we actually did this report and we compared where the India GCC industry is today as compared to, say, 2019, FY 2019. And what we saw is that the number of GCCs today is 1,700 plus in India, which has grown by over 32% since FY 2019. And the number of centers, the number of GCC units that are there, that stands at about 2,975 odd approximately. This is March 31st, 2024. And this number has actually grown by 60% over FY 2019, which actually means that not only the new centers are the new GCCs are expanding in India, the existing ones are also expanding and establishing new centers all across. So more than 1,000 new centers has been established in the last 5 years or so. What's the secret sauce? And I think the secret sauce is not significantly different from what it was for the IT BPM industry for us, the technology industry per se. And GCCs for me are a subset of the IT BPM industry because they're also horizontal. They do IT services, they do engineering, they do BPO, they do product management, all that, right? If you look at the GCCs today in India, and you look at different sectors, right? 8 out of top 10 automotive companies in the world are present in India from a GCC standpoint. They may not be present from an India market perspective, but the GCC is over here. 7 out of top 10 banks are in India. Many of them don't function in India as an operationally, but they're still here. 4 out of the top 10 retail companies, 6 out of the top 10 aerospace and defense companies, 9 out of the top 10 software companies, right? Semiconductors, 6 out of the top 10, they're all here in India. And the two things that I think that really is what you call as secret sauce, right? I think for India, it is the ability to do it all. If you look at all the countries in the world where you have GCCs and other tech services, it's only India where you can actually have adequate people, adequate expertise, adequate talent, adequate infrastructure to really support IT services or support BPM services or do the new high growth area of engineering research and design services. India is the only country where you can do it all. That's one of the most important factors when it comes to secret sauce. And the second is scale, Anil. So many GCCs are already in India. I talked to you about the a little while back on the numbers, right? Many of them don't have an operation, but they have established an India center to take advantage of India's talent, expertise across multiple verticals, domain knowledge, the digital capabilities, and the ability to innovate. And it's like people think that if there are 1,700 companies already in India employing more than 1.9 million people into tech services, they have to be here because they're getting something good, right? So that scale actually is an advantage for us.
So basically, it's a very happy convergence of a multitude of trends, right? So I just want
Yes,
to do a
yes,
quick follow up on this talent pool that you flagged.
yes.
Is that likely to be a constraint going forward because demand seems to be skyrocketing for GCCs? So will the talent pool match up?
I think it's a good point that you pulled out, Anil. If you see from a GCC evolution perspective, the core last 5 years has really been a very strong talent story. And the talent story has not only been about building, what do I say, core engineering and leadership talent. So if you took an average GCC out there and and you looked at the number of engineers that were there in India in 2019, maybe out of 100, maybe 24 would be in India. Today, it's 32. Okay, you move to product management, product managers, right? So it's a very advanced skill set. India probably accounted for 8% of product managers. So if you have 100 product managers in your organization, 8 would be in India in 2019. Today, that number is 12. Same thing goes to architects. From 12 out of 100 in India in 2019, now the number is 20. And more importantly, global roles, people with global responsibilities. That number has actually moved from 1 in any organization to 4 on an average in any organization. So you actually have people who are playing on the global scale and able to build brand India and present the story to there. So that's a big thing that we have seen. Engineering capabilities that has also increased at 1.4x higher than non-engineering businesses that are there, which means more complex, higher value added work. Again, boils down to our good quality talent that is available over here. So I think from a talent perspective, there is a strong story that is coming in. Look at, many times we thought that, it's only the American market that we cater to, given our propensity for English and all. But today, higher growth is actually being seen from the European and the Asian GCC sector. So I think that has really helped drive the growth. And you look at unicorns, they have established R&D centers in India. You look at global 2000 companies, they have also increasingly established their R&D centers in India. So I think these are all important criteria that highlight the strength of India's talent. And it's not only about the technical skills, but also the flexibility, adaptability, and the leadership skills that they have been put on display.
Interesting. So another aspect, Achyuta, of this big jump that we have seen of GCCs in India is implicitly it's signaling major trust because we are talking about a lot of data
Yep.
privacy issues here. So it's not a simple transaction that's happening. So, in fact, the NASSCOM report flags this point particularly and says that the global perception of India is being remolded because of this
Yep.
trust factor going up. Can you elaborate on that?
The perception shift that you're talking about, Started with the growth of the tech services sector many years ago. And of course, GCCs also grew along with that, and now it's quite a big thing. Stakeholders across the world look at India slightly differently because they see this huge variety of local companies, local for them, right? Local for them, American companies and German companies and Asian companies and so on and so forth, and a very eclectic mix, whether it's a large or a medium or a small, whether it's a US company or a European company or a APAC company, whether it's from banking or retail or healthcare, industrial, right? Whether they are digital natives, the unicorns, the tech companies, pure tech companies, which are evolving very fast, or traditional organizations, old organizations which have established 400-500 years ago. I mean, there are companies who are as old as that. Whether they are all existing, coexisting, they're all scaling, they're all growing, they're all establishing, new ones are continuing to come in and into India, right? Doing entry level work, doing mid level work, doing higher end work, owning the service lines, driving the digital agenda for their parents, right? Having this global roles out there. So I think these are all great touch points for organizations to believe in the India story. We often, in the GCC space, we often say that there are four maturity models. GCCs have evolved from outpost to a satellite to a portfolio hub to a transformation hub. The last category is the most mature category, the transformation hub, where people are actually leading the digital transformation charter for their parents out of India. All the digital work is being done out of India. The second category from the top, which is the portfolio hub, is where you have some amount of control, some amount of portfolio development driven from India. So I think almost 42% of the GCCs today in India are falling in that category. This is high-end work being done out of India, and no better brand ambassador of quality is there other than the work that you do. And I think that is definitely 10 years ago, this number of companies who are 42% today was only about 15% or so. So it was a very low number. And today we have almost half the companies in that particular sector. So I think that's a great example of companies, building the trust on India to deliver.
You also mentioned that Indian GCCs are moving up the value addition chain.
Hmm.
And your NASSCOM report also makes a point that GCCs are no longer necessarily metro-centric. They are now exploring tier 2, tier 3 towns. So how does this two marry? Because do you have the talent, do you have the infrastructure in tier 2, tier 3 to keep this momentum on value addition alive?
I think that's a great question, Anil. And whenever we go to different cities, when we talk about GCCs and other industries, I think this typically comes up. While tier one cities continue to be the main focus areas for GCCs, right? They've expanded a lot. Bangalore is number one, followed by NCR. Then you have Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Chennai, etc. Those cities are there. GCC will also started to expand to tier two locations. That is something that we have seen. And just for some data points, in FY19, about 5% of GCC centers or units were in tier 2, tier 3 locations as compared to 7% today. So it doesn't seem much in percentage terms, the shift. But in absolute terms, it means a lot. What it translates to is that there were 80 odd GCC units in tier 2 locations in 2019, and today it is 220. So basically almost a 2.7 to 3x growth. So basically a tripling of number of centers or number of units in tier 2 cities versus tier 1 cities. Which are the biggest gainers? Kolkata, Coimbatore, Ahmedabad, Chandigarh, Trivandrum, Kochi, etc. I think these are some of the cities where we have seen the number of GCCs treble or quadruple at the bare minimum. What are the key drivers? I think one is, improving infrastructure in cities. GCCs were always very particular about what city they go to. It should have a modicum of infrastructure, right? International airports, highways, this, that, and all. So I think the overall government push towards improving infrastructure at a country level is really giving a lot of benefits. The second one is the development of this hub and spoke model, which has actually accelerated post-COVID. Post-COVID, a lot of people went back home, right? Companies followed them back, often not to the tier 4 or the tier 3 location, but definitely tier 2 locations, taking up co-working spaces, establishing a smaller center over there so that people can work out of there. So that hub and spoke model actually helped in delivering. So they're not big centers that they'll establish in tier 2 locations, but reasonable sized. Interestingly, you talked about talent, right? But Anil, what we have seen is that almost 60% of engineering institutes are in tier 2, tier 3 locations. So the people are coming from those locations. Whether they aspire to be in those cities post graduation, that's a different game altogether. But availability of people, that is definitely there. Willingness of people to stay in those locations, that's, I think, something that we probably need to work on as a society, because somewhat we feel that the system actually encourages you to go look for opportunities into the top 2 or 3 cities all the time. And I think this is something that we could change. Cost advantage definitely there for tier 2, tier 3 locations. Improve connectivity, we talked about it. Connectivity has really improved. And there are a lot of governments also which are going all out to attract GCCs and get them into some of the tier 2, tier 3 locations. State government policies and all, some people are working on it, some have released. So I think some of these things are definitely going to help in growing the footfalls and the presence of GCCs in tier 2, tier 3 locations.
So, Achyuta, this questions, we did touch on it very briefly in our conversation, but just want to specifically ask you, how do GCCs manage the data security challenge? Because this is very sensitive data which they're dealing with.
So I think, most GCCs have something which is called as a regulatory compliance, maturity model, where they have an organization structure which is compliance driven, policies, procedures that are well defined, roles, responsibilities are also defined. The risk assessment is done periodically. There is a whistleblower framework in place, right? Reporting structures are there in terms of exceptions, how are they reported, alignment of business practices, application of regulatory, overall regulatory requirements, implementation of systems, rules, right? Licenses, document retention policies on how long you're supposed to keep each document before you delete them. The audits, compliance process, self-certifications, third-party compliance is also there. I think remedial action that you need to take whenever there is an incident. And I think the relationship by designing and implementing your privacy policies in line with the DPDP requirements, performing data mapping exercises, maintaining records of processing activity, assessing of third-party vendors before onboarding and ensuring privacy by design, third-party vendors to be onboarded on an ongoing basis. So I think some of these things are important criteria that GCCs are implementing to ensure that, privacy is maintained in the right way.
Actually, great to hear that, because India's journey in data privacy is very new as a law. It's thanks to Aadhaar and the challenge to Aadhaar that it finally came into place. So you are saying that there already exists a blueprint which has been put in place, and it's like a standard operating procedure, right?
Correct. I think GCCs, by establishment, people used to talk about BCP a lot. Today they don't. In the past they used to, because that's a hygiene factor, that's a given. So I think the entire model of GCC is built on, data privacy at the center of everything, right? Because that's something that companies will always want.
One big takeaway in our conversations with Achyuta today is the fact that India's technology prowess has grown profoundly over the last 4 decades. From an era of business process outsourcing or body shopping, it has transitioned to GCCs engaged in value-added work, including the use of AI applications to improve organizations. On top of it, the homegrown innovations in digital public infrastructure like Aadhaar, CoWIN, UPI and so on are only adding another layer of sophistication to this capability. Pull all this together and it is clear that India has acquired a very compelling calling card to the world, a case of neighbor's envy, owner's pride. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to StratNews Global on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any updates. And please to share your thoughts, ideas and suggestions with us. I'm available on Twitter at Capital Calculus. I'll be back next week with another episode. Till then, stay safe.